The spiritual world is not a joke, brothers. I'm going to show you this story here, you'll be impressed, and then I'll show you in the Bible whether this makes sense or not. So stay with me until the end, open your heart, because maybe something is happening in your house, in your family, or in your own life. So, let's watch.
Be careful with the objects you bring into your house. This story I'm going to tell is a bit intense, so if you're scared, don't watch it. If it's nighttime, wait until morning. I'm the daughter of a pastor and I've had several spiritual experiences. Not just because of that, but it does add a little extra weight. For as long as I can remember, my mother has had a business that rents outfits for weddings, a bridal shop. And she always tried to rent big houses with lots of rooms to fit everything a bridal shop needs. This story I'm going to tell happened a long time ago. She's moved out of that house many years ago, so I need to emphasize that. Yeah, when I say we meaning my sister and I, we were kids. I was about 8 years old and she was about 5. And my parents are separated. So things got a little complicated for my mom, and we had to live in the same house that was also the store. Yeah, we lived in a room at the back of the store. And then, that store was kind of weird. Because when my mom rented it, the owner of the house asked her to leave some of his things there, because he had nowhere else to take them. There were some rustic pieces of furniture, there was a big aquarium made of rustic wood. There was a really big painting. Anyway, there were some objects and there was no way to say no, right? She said, you can leave them, it's not a problem. When you find a place to take them, just let me know. But those things stayed there for a long time and the house was like that. Everyone experienced disturbances. The employees who worked there didn't like to be alone. Each employee had already seen and heard things. In the next video, I'm going to record another video just to tell the stories that the employees used to tell us about what happened to them in that house. But today I'm going to tell the story that happened to us personally. So like I said, we used to live there, so during the day it was relatively calm. But when it was time to sleep, the atmosphere would get heavy. Yeah, my sister and I, we always had a lot of nosebleeds. We went to the doctor, did several tests, and nothing was ever found. Until one day, after my mom prayed so much and kept asking why. This video is going to be long, guys. I'm trying to summarize, but please don't get mad at me. I'm warning you. It's going to be long. Yeah, we would stand up on the bed while we were asleep. The three of us slept in the same king-size bed. And then we would stand on the bed in the middle of the night. We would walk and hit our heads on the wall like sleepwalkers. But we weren't sleepwalking. We would do this, look, and we would hit our faces on the wall. And then the blood would run down. We would lie down and bleed there all night on the pillow. Every day we would wake up with the pillow soaked in blood. And then my mom only noticed this when she prayed and asked God to show her what was happening. Because until then, she thought we were sick, that something was wrong. And then God allowed her to wake up in the middle of the night and see, because it seemed like the enemy was even blinding her. She couldn't wake up even with someone walking on her bed. And then, the day she saw the two of us, guys, it was intense, hitting our faces against the wall. She was just like that, perplexed and freaked out, and started to pray. When her mom woke up, she told her employees about it. And she went there. And then the employees, each one shared something they'd already witnessed in that house. She kept praying and asking God to show her what it was, There was a boy who was kind of like a homeless kid. He was really scruffy, you know. Some days he would sleep on the street, some days he would go home. His mother didn't take care of him. They were really struggling. And whenever he felt hungry, he would go there because she kind of took him in. She would buy him snacks, give him lunch, sometimes let him take a shower there. This boy was about 10 years old. And then, one time, this boy showed up. And we weren't there, only one employee was there. And then she opened the metal gate on the stairs, because it was a 2-story house. The door was on the stairs, so he could come in. And he just walked in, crawling like a snake on his back. He went up the stairs on his back just like a snake, as if he had little legs on his back. When he got up there, he turned and said to the employee, "Where's Morma? My mom, her name is Edinalva." He doesn't call her by her name. He called her Morma. Don't ask me why. And then she said, "She's not here." He said, "Okay, I'll come back later," and he left. When my mom arrived, this desperate employee told her what happened, crying her eyes out. And obviously, the boy was. And then we waited for this boy to come back so we could finally understand what happened and all. This boy came back, I don't know how many days later. Like I said, I was young. I was about 7 or 8 years old. But he came back. And then my mom asked him. Actually, she didn't even ask. When she heard his voice, she was in the kitchen, she took off her shoe and she quietly tried to listen to him talking to the employee, thinking that, like, near her, he wouldn't do anything. And then, in a room, before she got there, without making any noise, he turned and said, "Hi, Morma, I know you're there." And then she said, "How do you know?" Then he said, "He told me." Then she asked, "Who?" But he didn't answer. She said, "Walk like you did the day I wasn't here, so I can see." Then he said, "I won't." Then she said, "Oh, the creature that made you walk isn't here today, is it?" Then he said, "Yes, it is. Look over there, in the painting." And he ran away. The painting that the owner of the house had left. And then, when he left, my mom and this employee gathered around that painting, and they kept looking. The painting had lots of flowers, tulips, many of them, like a tulip garden sky. Up until then, nothing unusual, guys. My mom started praying, asking God to show her. And then, after they kept looking for so long, they found, hidden among the tulips, really well hidden, with a paint similar to the color of the tulips, so it wouldn't be obvious. Tiny demon faces in the middle of the tulips, several of them. But, like I said, if they hadn't prayed, God wouldn't have shown them, because it was really well camouflaged, like those subliminal messages. It was the same color paint as the flowers, of the background around the flowers, and the demons were really tiny, hidden. It was really the person who painted the picture who did that. I don't know if the owner of the house knew when they bought it, but anyway, they were there. And then my mom took it. She told him that she couldn't keep the painting anymore. She returned it. And then they started praying to break that off. And then it was just disturbance, guys. And remember the fact that we used to bump our faces into the wall in the middle of the night? There was one night when, after so much praying and casting out and all that, after she took down the painting, she woke up. Actually, she didn't wake up. She was sleeping. And she felt my sister walking. When she felt my sister walking, she grabbed my sister's arm and started laying her down. And instead of waking up and looking at my sister, she looked to the other side. When she looked to the other side, she saw a woman. Blonde, with long hair, wearing a denim jacket, walking, going inside the wardrobe. And then she took it. Morning came, she broke the wardrobe, she threw the wardrobe away. God revealed everything. She threw the wardrobe away, and then she went into prayer to break the curse. And she kept praying. She fasted, prayed. The employees did too, because after all, they worked there. They were tired of going through hardship, difficulties. And then in the end, on another day, she was sleeping. She woke up in the middle of the night again, and she saw the room full of suitcases. Lots of suitcases. Which in the spiritual sense meant what? That things were leaving. And then after that, there was peace. Yeah, we stopped having nosebleeds. I wonder why, right? We stopped being disturbed and banging our heads against the wall, and everything just flowed. Yeah, everyone stopped seeing things, stopped hearing things. So be careful about the things in your house. You rented a house, a rental house. You have the right to have the house clean and empty. I can leave it, look. I'd rather not, because I have a lot of furniture. There's no way. Tell people to take their things with them. Everything you receive as a gift you consecrate to God, and you undo whatever it was consecrated to when you received it. This is very important, a gift. Yeah, be careful with everything you bring into your house, because evil needs a body, and that body can be an object to enter your home.
That's right, brothers. Did you see that this account is true? And another thing, there are a lot of people who don't believe it. There are a lot of people who think it's an exaggeration. But brothers, let's turn to the Word of God. I'm going to read it for you here. Look, Acts chapter 19, verse 11. Pay attention. It says, God did extraordinary miracles through Paul, so that even handkerchiefs and aprons that Paulo used were taken and placed on the sick. They were healed of their diseases, and evil spirits came out of them. It's interesting, right? Because these objects here, in this case the handkerchiefs, the aprons, pieces of clothing, were used by God. In other words, they carried God's power in these objects, in these clothes, so that the sick were healed and evil spirits came out of people. Brothers, it's the word of God. In other words, if these clothes carry the power of God, why don't we believe that certain objects can also carry evil powers from the devil, you know? So, for me, it's clear that not only in the Old Testament do we see cases, right, of objects that attracted bad things. Like in the case of Achan, who hid some pieces of silver, some clothes, and because of that, Israel started to lose battle after battle, but also in the New Testament. And we notice here in chapter 19 of Acts itself, there in verse 18, pay attention. And many of those who believed came and confessed and openly declared their evil deeds. A large number of those who had practiced occultism gathered their books and burned them publicly. In other words, it is indeed necessary for you to give up everything that you know has been consecrated to the enemy. That was part of a time in your life when you didn't have Jesus, and you realized that it really doesn't please God. Brothers, I remember when I converted, I gave up, CDs that I remember were even expensive. They were imported CDs by bands from abroad, but they were rock bands. Evil rock, heavy rock, like that. Yeah, I'm sure that wasn't from God. That wasn't good for me. So I didn't give it to anyone, because if it wasn't good for me, it won't be good for anyone else. So I tore up clothes with rock bands that I had no use for anymore, So it's something personal. Each of you needs to seek discernment. I also broke the altars I had with incense and skulls. You know my testimony, right? I'll even put it here at the end. And I also want to put it here at the end of the video, brothers. In a little while, a video where I talk in more detail about some objects for you to pay attention to in your house. So to sum up, I broke those altars and God blessed me greatly. I had to break away, brothers, from darkness, from things of the past. So if this video moved you, if it touched you, subscribe to my channel, because every day I want to bring new content here, alright? This girl is Samia Anjos, so don't forget to share. I know there are a lot of people who need to hear this message. Wow, what a strong and powerful testimony. Alright, God bless you. I hope to see you in the video I'm going to put on the screen so you can learn more about the objects, and there's also the video of my testimony. God bless you.